On November 27, 2024, the sun shot a solar flare headed to the Earth, disrupting the magnetic protective layer of the Earth. 4 days later, Eduardo Bove, an Italian soccer player, collapsed in the field. He was taken to the hospital and was diagnosed with a cardiac arrest. At 22 years old, he now has to live with a pacemaker. And from the medical point of view, that implies that the problem was electrical and not from the tissue. Dr. Chang, director of the Research Department of Healthy Aging at the Smith Heart Institute, is revealing that young people between 25 and 44-year-old are suffering and even dying from heart conditions. However, there are reports of excess death around the world that don't align with the COVID-19 diagnosis as the cause of death. So watch this video clip.
In the 3 years of the pandemic between 2020 and 2023, there were more than 30 million excess deaths across 125 countries. Now, we've been led to believe by the authorities that there's one obvious cause for this, but the authors of a brand new study call this into question. They explicitly say that the data do not support the theory that a viral respiratory disease could account for all of those deaths. So the question we're left with, what was the real cause?
Could it be a solar flare? Did you know that there's a correlation between death by heart attack and solar activity? But no doctor is talking about it. In the last video, where you can find it here, I discuss about the wealth of studies done by environmental scientists connecting solar activity and human health. And for starters, look at this graph correlating with all of the pandemic that have happened since the mid-1700s. Each of these pandemic either correspond to the peak or trough of each solar cycle. So look at on the right, the last two peaks corresponded with the SARS and the MERS pandemic. And at the bottom, see, the last pandemic was the swine flu, and the last one is the COVID. In the next graph, it shows all the changes in society or revolutions that happen every time we are on the peak of solar activity. Look at, you can see the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the start of the communism, Cuban Revolution, etc. So now we are at the peak of the solar activity. The question is, how will society change? Will there be another revolution? So as I said before, scientists have found an increased correlation of solar activity affecting our health, like heart attack, arrhythmia, high blood pressure, and not only cardiovascular, but mental, like forgetfulness, depression, confusion, anxiety disorders, increased violence, and even suicides. Look at the recordings of my blood pressure. I was even affected during that week of the solar flare. But nobody's talking about this except Dr. Campbell, who has a YouTube channel that talks about public health matters. Take a listen.
See that this trend is continuing where we have the data through 2022, through 2023, into 2024, and no one seems to be making a song and dance about it. People are dying, and yet, I don't know, but people in denial about their own mortality. I can't really quite explain why there's not more talking about this and more outrage and everything about this. It's just very strange to me.
When addressing your health, make sure to include the effect of the solar activity among all of the factors that impact your health in 2025 and 2026. So in this video, I'm going to show you the details of how the sun affects our health and why do we want to know about it? Because when you know how the sun affects us, you'll be able to hack it or to just push the right button so your health goes back to normal. So if you're interested, join me in this video. Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Healing Without Medicine. My name is Dr. Lei, and I'm a physician turned health educator and coach. And my mission is to empower you to heal without medicine with simple solutions rooted in Eastern and Western medical practices. I have a passion for astronomy. And as a physician, I can't stop thinking how the solar activity in the next 2 years is going to affect our health. And that's why I'm creating this series of videos. In this video, I want to answer 2 questions. How is the solar activity affect our health, the human health, and whether everyone is affected? So let's begin by explaining what is the solar activity. So probably you have heard mentioning about solar flashes, solar flare, and coronal mass ejection. So what is the difference between them? Well, coronal mass ejection is like an explosion of the sun ejecting particles hurling towards the earth. And solar flares and flashes is just a lightning of the sun, and normally they just send gamma rays, radiation. The only difference is the duration and the intensity. Basically, the increase of solar activity is just explosions happening in the sun. Solar activity can affect us in 2 ways. Explained very simply. There may be more things involved, but this is just simply. It can affect us by radiation or electromagnetic disturbance. Now, the radiation, you need to be closer in distance, and it doesn't affect all of us, so it's more local. You need to be closer to the source, and it happens mainly to certain type of occupational population, like pilots, flight attendants, and frequent flyers. However, with the disturbance of electromagnetic field, it can happen to all of us, and that is the one that I'm going to explain, because each one of us may have a higher chance to experience electromagnetic disturbances. The earth and any human being carry electromagnetic fields, and it is through the disturbance of these fields where the sun affects us. Since all of us, human and living beings, live on the planet Earth, we are surrounded by the atmosphere. And this atmosphere is also electrical, but we are used to live with this very small kind of electricity in the atmosphere. So when there's one of these explosions in the sun and it's directed towards the earth, that is going to send us an increased power of energy, and it charges the atmosphere. In turn, because we also have our magnetic field, we're going to be resonating with such an increased charge. So it's very simple. Solar activity sends a solar flash disturb the electromagnetic field of the earth, and that atmosphere is going to disturb our energy field. And what happens when our electromagnetic field get charged by increase of solar activity? Well, we're going to behave like an ungrounded TV. It gets staticky and it doesn't work. This topic is very controversial among the scientists because people don't know much about it, because you cannot see the electromagnetic field. And you know us, if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. But it is through this, in the energy field, where all the action happens. And knowing how the sun affects us is another exercise to expand our awareness and consciousness. Okay, to begin understanding how energy affects us. As you should know by now that we are electric. In order to have health, this energy has to flow. It has to flow in our body in order to be healthy. What happens when the energy flow gets stagnant in the human body? That's when disease and problem happen. You're gonna have disease, inflammation, cancer, or your heart stop working. To answer the second question, are we all going to be affected? According to the ancient people, the answer is no. It all depends how that solar flare finds you. Let's listen to Sadhguru, a very wise man, in this video clip.
The sunspots will definitely create some kind of volatile energy, but how it will work out for human beings is left to us. If you were psychologically fragile, then you would distinctly notice it. People who are psychologically imbalanced for some reason, on that day they will find they're much more imbalanced. But those who are meditative will become much more meditative. Those who are gentle will become much more gentle. Those who are loving will become much more loving. Those who are insane will become much more insane. So if we have a plan to make use of this volatile nature, if we prepare enough people, then definitely human consciousness could rise much more easily than other times. In that way, it is little more conducive, but one must understand, it's like this, if the wind blows, if you fly like this, if you have an airplane and if you fly into the wind, effortlessly you will fly. Suppose you're in the wrong direction, you will crash. Wind is just blowing, not to make you fly, not to make you crash, it just blows. But it's up to you whether you use it to fly or to crash.
Sadhguru couldn't have said it better than me. Only 10 to 15% of the people are affected, or they call it sensitive to the solar activity. But this sensitivity, I found out later, that it means that they're not in perfect health, meaning they have some kind of chronic disease or condition that is affected by this increased solar activity. This increased solar activity is going to charge the atmosphere that we live, making our body also charge. And if we don't know how to manage that energy inside the body, it's going to create further stress in our body. Your blood pressure is going up, you're going to have arrhythmia, you're going to get anxious. Basically, all of this charged electricity is going to stress your body. And if your body is not healthy, is not balanced, that's when disease and problem happen. Young people has no problem, they can manage this stress, they can get up. But people who has already an imperfect health is going to be imposing an excess stress that can tip you over. And sometimes when the solar activity comes, you are unable to get up. Do you remember the excess death that I mentioned in the beginning, in the introduction, which began during the COVID pandemic in 2020, meaning 5 years ago, and that's when this current solar cycle was beginning? Some of these health scientists reported that it was not a direct cause from the virus. I'm just wondering whether this excess death, mostly from cardiovascular causes, is directly related to this increase of solar activity, which began 5 years ago. And that was the beginning of the current solar cycle. I'm just throwing out there, it's just a thought. This celestial event is not impending doom, it's not. We have a lot to do. I feel that this is a great opportunity, if you're not in perfect health, to really get on the game, okay? Because you don't want to become a number in the next 2 years. So I invite you to watch the next video where I'm gonna show you how we can harness this energy to reverse whatever thing is going on your body.